Do you guys hear the AC? In a second.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the Making College Success a Reality for New York's Youth in Care webinar. Today's webinar is focused on how higher education staff can support students with a foster care background with attending college, as well as providing some examples of best practice models of programs that are currently supporting foster youth to successfully move through college towards college graduation. My name is Jessica Maxwell. I'm a consultant working with Children's Aid. I support the guide resource development, as well as helping to support the development of these webinars and promote advocacy for the guidebook. I've worked in child welfare policy for over 10 years, and I'm passionate about ensuring that young people with a foster care background and those that have lived experience have a seat at the table and are able to contribute to decision-making on issues that impact them. I currently reside in Los Angeles, California, and I work on educational issues involving system-involved scholars. I'm excited to introduce to you our panelists for today. But before we get started, I just wanted to do a quick housekeeping. So just FYI, everyone has been entered into listen-only mode. And if you have any questions for the panelists, we will be doing a Q&A feature at the end of the presentation today. So you can use the Q&A feature on your Zoom function to submit questions for any of the panelists. We ask that you try not to use the chat feature for any questions. So now I am pleased to introduce to everyone our great. I'm pleased to introduce to everyone our amazing panelists. The first panelist we have is Kimberly Alcaceres, who is 23-year-old mother from the Bronx, New York, as well as a Stony Brook graduate, May 2020. Congratulations, Kimberly. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in Africana Studies and a minor in political science. In addition to being a mom to a beautiful daughter, Kimberly has endured the rigors of the foster care system since the age of 14. Kimberly has continuously advocated to ensure that she had access to the best education possible and advocating for herself. Despite any odds that she came up against, Kimberly is looking forward to continuing her education by pursuing a nursing degree in hopes of becoming an OBGYN nurse practitioner. We are pleased to have you, Kimberly. Welcome. Next, I am excited to introduce Dorothy Corbett. Dorothy is a senior academic advisor and counselor for the EOP AIM program at Stony Brook University, where she has assisted in supporting students for over 20 years. Dorothy is a highly respected campus leader who has received numerous accolades, including most recently the 2019 SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Professional Services. Dorothy's steadfast commitment to strengthening campus support services and academic opportunities has made a meaningful difference in the lives of New York students with a foster care background. She frequently collaborates with other academic and child welfare professionals to promote innovative best practices that improve educational outcomes for foster youth. Welcome, Dorothy. Next, I'd love to introduce Aba Adiye, who is the director of the Fostering Youth Initiatives at CUNY. Aba has over 14 years experience with higher education and demonstrated academic excellence in supporting program strategy and implementation. Previously, Aba was the project manager for CUNY's continuing education and workforce development, supporting allied health programming and grants. Aba is also an award-winning documentary producer focused on addressing the challenges faced by underserved population. And last but not least, I'd love to introduce Simon Lee, who is the budget coordinator for the Fostering College Success Initiative at CUNY. Previously, Simon served as a general advisor at LaGuardia Community College. So welcome to all of our panelists. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the many contributors and partners who contributed to the development of the College Success Resource Guide, and all of the panelists who have participated in our 5-part webinar series. So a quick rundown of today's agenda. We will talk a bit about why we need to make college success a reality for New York's foster youth and highlight educational outcomes and best practices from around the country. We will then have Kimberly's presentation on what students want you to know. In addition to Kimberly, we have another amazing foster youth student, Claudia from SUNY Buffalo State, who has produced a video for you all, which will be available on the website, about what she wants you to know around supporting foster youth to attend college. We will then showcase 3 campus best practices through Stony Brook and 2 programs at CUNY. Then moving on to highlight some additional program models from across New York State, as well as campus policies and ways you all can support by advocating for foster youth students on your campus. We will last move into our webinar evaluation and a live Q&A where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Everyone has been entered into listen-only mode, so please use the Q&A box to ask questions, and you will answer your questions during the live Q&A. Let's get started. So, a reality for New York's fosters. As you know, education is a pathway out of poverty. Apologies. Education is a pathway out of poverty, and every young person in foster care deserves the opportunity to thrive just as we would want for our own children. When FYSA, which is the Fostering Youth College Success Initiative, Fostering Youth College Success Alliance, launched 6 years ago, 21 states were supporting post-secondary educational opportunities for foster youth, and New York was not one of them. Today's webinar highlights what you can do to ensure that foster youth receive the support and services they need to have a positive college experience and persist to graduation. So what's happening nationally? Nationally, there are currently 22 states that offer tuition-only waivers for foster youth to attend college, which are great, but these waivers typically only offer tuition and fee waivers. There are 3 states that have statewide college success programs, which includes the California Guardian Scholars Program through the UC campuses, the Washington Governor's Scholarship, and in New York City, the Nick Scholars Program, formerly known as the Guardian Scholars Program, which is the 2nd longest running program in the country. There are 3 states that have academic funded support programs for community college students. That includes the New York State Foster Youth College Success Initiative, the Washington State College Success Foundation program at public universities, and in California, a program aimed at supporting foster youth through the educational opportunity programs at community colleges. There's 1 state that has a statewide supportive housing policy for foster youth, and that is California, which prioritizes housing for all foster youth on public campuses. In New York has made many strides to support foster youth with attending college, including modifying the TOP program, establishing the Foster Youth College Success Initiative, which has contributed over $21 million in financial aid to foster youth over the last 5 years. And additionally, there are many local best practices, which you'll hear some of them from today, but we'll point you to some additional local best practices at the College Success Guide. So I'd like to share with you all a tool that was designed for you all to use to support students with a foster care background. It's called the Making College Success a Reality for New York's Youth in Care Resource Guide. The resource guide, we encourage you to visit at the end of today's webinar, but it can be found at www.fysa.org/college-success-guide. And so it's here. As you can see, you'll be able to click on the guide and view all of the resources within the guide. This guide has many tools within its 6 chapters, including student introductions to each chapter that highlights the experiences of foster youth with attending college and navigating their college experience from the time of application throughout graduation. So we encourage you to review that guide. I am excited to pass over to Kimberly, who we will hear from next. Kimberly is going to share her specific experiences with attending college in New York. And then the next person will be Dorothy, who will share how Stony Brook supports foster youth with attending college. Kimberly, you're up. Kimberly, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes. Okay. I first applied to Stony Brook in my senior year of high school, which was the fall of 2014. I originally thought I wasn't accepted. However, with the help of my education specialist at my foster care agency, she was able to find the email of the forms I needed to fill out for the EOP program. However, when I found out I was pregnant at the beginning of 2015, everything changed. I originally wanted to go to SUNY Albany because a lot of my friends from high school were going there. But I'm actually really glad I chose to go to Stony Brook because although every SUNY has an on-campus daycare, Stony Brook was the only one to have on-campus family housing. Having my own apartment with my daughter after being in foster homes prepared me to become more independent than I had been living in other people's houses. I finally felt like I could provide my daughter with a stable home and routine. However, since I needed to complete the EOP Summer Academy before my first semester, it was best to defer my admissions to the following summer of 2016. After being a stay-at-home mom for 9 months, I felt eager to start taking classes again. It was my daughter's first time at daycare, and she was finally taking naps during the day, but she didn't want to sleep all night, even though she would be exhausted. This was also rough for me because I'm getting home at 10:30 every night to do homework that would be due by 11:59. I secretly wanted to quit the second day because of how intense it was. But I looked at how far I had come and there was no turning back for me. After getting acclimated with the summer program, I was prepared to start off my first semester. Looking to pursue a degree in the medical field, I took science and math and other graduation requirements. So I had a packed schedule. Most days I didn't even have time to eat between classes, and I would be so overwhelmed that I eventually would stop going to my big lectures, which isn't something I'm proud of, but I needed breaks because I wouldn't be able to eat in between classes. Okay. After I was able to make my own schedule, I felt more in control of my education and my life as a mom. I wasn't able to work as much as I wanted during the fall and spring semesters, which was really stressful. And the size of the campus was also impacting my transportation back and forth from home and the daycare. When it comes to support, I'm honestly grateful for meeting Dorothy because she has helped me so much with the foster care agency and the foster care grants, as well as be my support system on campus. Even though I have a lot of respect for her as a mother figure, I would visit her more often than I would my friends and actually enjoy her company. She also got me in contact with the Dean of Students, Catherine Duffy, who was also helpful when I got into my car accident and couldn't physically attend classes due to my injury. Also, most professors I've had in both Africana Studies and the Political Science Department have been accommodating anytime I had an issue going on. However, the departments for math and science were not so accommodating. regarding the night exams, which was really frustrating and which caused me to change my degree path. Overall, my advice for staff regarding students in general would be to keep in mind that every student has a different background and comes from a different household. And they might also not be able to handle the same workload. Also, I think all academic advisors should be trained with foster care resources for youth in care attending college. As far as for parenting students, I feel like campuses and college departments should be more understanding and accommodating during their college experience. For parenting students in foster care, I feel that on a federal level, there should be more support for them and their children. Being that education is mostly important to avoid poverty, I feel that parenting students should get more support so that they will feel more inclusive on campus. And that's the end of it.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. We appreciate you sharing your story. I'd like to pass it off to Dorothy now, who is going to talk about how Stony Brook has been a leader in supporting foster youth over the last 10 years and some of the policies they put into place.
Thank you, Jessica. And it just warms my heart to hear Kim speak. I met Kim in her senior year of high school when she was applying to college. And it's an honor to have watched her journey and to see where she is right now and the excellent mother and adult woman that I saw her grow into is priceless. And a lot of this is based on what we're going to speak about today. So Jessica already gave me a very wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for all the kind words you said about me. But yes, Stony Brook was identified, I want to say, I think it was in 2012, New York State Office of Child and Family Services, after doing some research, realized that Stony Brook University was graduating the majority of foster youth in New York State, and they came to us to find out why. And at the time, there was no policy in place anywhere that connected higher education to the foster care system. And what ended up happening is that there was a small little system, network rather, it wasn't a system, a network that I had created with different departments on campus to facilitate when we did get foster youth, which at the time might have been, if we had anywhere between 1 and 5 students a year. So it wasn't that many students, but just the fact that we were focusing on these students in a different way and making sure that their personal situations were being considered made our graduation rate of each particular student almost 100%. So I'll just go into what we started and how it's developed since then. So you can advance, Jessica. The first thing that we did was we had to figure out over the years, how do we find out who these students are? Identification is really important because the earlier you find out what a student that you have a student in care or a student who's an orphan or a ward of the state, irrespective of what state they come from, the better. So now there's a lot of things in place, but back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was nothing in place to identify these students. So unless the student themselves knew or felt that they had a reason to tell you that they were youth in care, it never came up. And a lot of the youth in care back in the late 90s, early 2000s didn't want to reveal it because there was no funding for them. Now we have this wonderful New York State funding, so we have an incentive to find them and tell them, hey, there's help for you. Even in recruiting to high schools, we can do that. So the first thing that we did was we started a many-year journey to solicit to the SUNY chancellor to get a question on the SUNY application. It's been on the FAFSA for years, but that was not really a good indication for many reasons. But once we got it on the SUNY application, then every institution within the SUNY system could literally do a query search within their database to find out who answered this question. So that was a major hurdle that took probably about a decade, but it finally got on there with our last chancellor, and it has made such a difference. So from there, our institutional research at SUNY, which I just have to praise Augustine Rodriguez, our programmer. He created a query that actually searches through the SUNY application and the FAFSA to isolate the students who have any kind of indicator that they are independent and to find out why. So we can find out whether a student has ever been in care, whether they are a ward of the state of New York State or the state that they came from, and or if they do not have living parents through this query. And the query actually helps us also because he made sure that it included all of the data that we need when we have to do reporting, such as Social Security's, date of birth, address, and all of the things that are asked for from our New York State Office of Family and Child Services to make sure that these students are properly identified. The next thing that we go on top of, and this is all we had at one point in time, working for the Educational Opportunity Program, and those students are the students who come from families who live below the poverty line. We would see the majority of students who were in care or who were orphans just by the nature of poverty and disadvantagement. So we would literally, our department would go in and ask our students in July when they came to Summer Academy, who here has ever been in foster care? And we would do it by an anonymous survey so they felt comfortable. And then we would ask them who has ever been in foster care, what age, so we made sure that they fit the guidelines. We asked who had living parents, because not all students have families, but there's a lot of different circumstances, some that do fit our requirements for the Foster Youth Success Initiative and some that don't. But we would find all of it out so then we could do our own research. And we did that in July, so we still had time before the fall semester started to make sure that we had the correct students. And then lastly, as we found this group, we would investigate further. So if we had a student from out of state, we would contact that state social services or their county and state social services and say, hey, I have this person who is now a freshman at Stony Brook University. They were in foster youth. Can you send me the documentation, because we need to upload it to our system in New York to make sure, or to find out whether or not they are not eligible for our funding. And that's what we did with those youth, so we can identify all of them to make sure that they all were serviced. You can advance to the next slide. After that, once we found out who our population was, it was very simple. We kind of call it a checks and balances. I, as the liaison to the foster youth, I would reach out to all of their support systems. I would first contact whatever county agency that was working with them and find out that social worker, identify myself as their personal counselor, and let them know that I would be working with them for any financial and personal information they needed going forward as an undergraduate. And I would do the same with their agency caseworkers and the same with their law guardian. It's different if they were orphans because they don't really have an agency to report to, but doing those three services, I kind of felt like it was a checks and balances, because I always had someone to make sure that the other person or the other agency was doing what they were responsible for this youth. Next slide. And then within EOP, one of the great things that we were able to do is we were able to establish students who lived on campus. If they chose not to go back to their foster care agency foster home, or if they lived in a group home, they could live on campus 12 months of the year. And we would make sure that their budgets fit in, and found out where we would get funding from. And it was a combination of federal and state financial aid, ETV funding, and the foster youth funding once it came into play about 5 years ago. Prior to that, we would use the other funding. And our campus was really, I'll speak about funding in a second, but our campus was really good at making sure that students could stay on campus and would not have to leave, and Stony Brook would be their permanent home, which I think really aided in the success. As Kimberly said, having her own apartment meant everything. She didn't have to be bussed around every year. Next presentation, next slide. From there, after we got them on campus and we got them settled, I would create a network between the financial aid office, the bursar office, and their whatever agency was working on behalf of that youth, so that we would make sure that the students could get everything that they needed to get their funding every year with at least amount of difficulty to them. I would try to do the bulk of the work for the students so the students could focus on their studies. And so that meant making sure that financial aid knew these are the students who are, for this academic year, are foster youth, orphans, and or wards of the state that they're of state of origin. Second, with the bursar, our bursars is wonderful in that they would waive all fees if agencies sent in money late, which often happens because they have a lot going on in the county and private agencies. They would waive fees for transcripts so that I can always get the students' transcripts, and I could send them personally to ETV, to any scholarships that student applied for and things of that nature, so that the students don't ever have to worry about whether or not they did have money or didn't have money or had a hold or didn't have a hold. Their transcripts are always available to us. And we would navigate to make sure that they always had the ability to use anything like the housing portal or registering for classes without any delay if their bill wasn't paid for on time, because we knew the money had to come from whatever source. And I would very easily climb the ranks. If an agency didn't send their money on time and they were kind of resistant, I would call the law guardian. If the law guardian didn't answer, I'd call the caseworker. So we would make sure that the student got whatever that they needed to get their bill connected. And lastly is working with the students throughout the 4 years so that as they get closer to 21, we would work with their county or their private agency to make sure all paperwork was filled. It's different for every agency, but for the most part for this New York State, it's the same. I don't know how it is for other states, but to make sure as they come closer to 21 that we start doing an exit plan so that, like Kimberly mentioned, they can have their own apartment when they leave, and they're not leaving the university to go back into foster care, but they're leaving to go into a place that they could live in as an adult now with their degree. And I think that is what made the smoothest of the transition for the students. And Stony Brook has been doing this for probably about 20 years now, the length of the time that I've been in that office. And it's proven successful because the majority of our students in care and who are orphans graduate from Stony Brook, which is awesome. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Dorothy. So much of what you have built at Stony Brook has shaped a lot of the statewide work, as well as this guidebook and this resource book. So we appreciate your wisdom shared for the benefit of others. As a reminder, you can use the Q&A feature to send any questions that you might have for the panelists about any of the information that they're presenting today. So next, I'd like to welcome our next presenters who will share information about several programs at CUNY that support students from foster care to be successful. So first we'll have Abba, and then we'll have Simon.
Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everyone. So at CUNY over the last 5 years, we have assembled a number of programming targeted at serving students who've been impacted by the foster care system in New York City. In 2014, CUNY received funding from the Conrad and Hilton Foundation for the Foster Care Initiative. This creating pathways into already successful support programs such as CUNY Start, Math Start, and ASAP. Then in 2015, the New York State invested in CUNY and other higher education institutions to support students under the Foster Youth College Success Initiative. And then in 2016, CUNY partnered with the Administration for Children's Services in New York, also known as ACS, for Fostering College Success Initiative, also known as the DOM Project. And so I'm Abha Adya, the University Director for Fostering Youth Initiatives for two of the programs that I mentioned above, FCSI, that's the DOM Project, as well as FCI. Now, all these three programs may have different eligibility criteria and different funding streams, but they share the same goal of increasing post-secondary enrollment, persistence, and graduation rates for orphans and youth impacted by the foster care system attending CUNY colleges. We are also involved in shifting policies and systems within the city to better support the population. And of course, the collaboration between the programs have grown over the years, and there is a significant crossover of students being supported by each of the programs. So what we do centrally is monitor all the students and monitor the supports and resources they receive, so there is equitable distribution of those resources. And then each program will cover the gap. My colleague Simon later will explain to you one such example, how gap funding works for FCSI or the DOM Project. Today, I'm going to focus on ASAP FCI or Foster Care Initiative, the first program that started at CUNY. So our students can either join CUNY Start, which is a low-cost pre-matriculation program for students who have significant remedial needs. If they don't have significant remedial needs, they can matriculate directly into ASAP and all the way up to their graduation. The eligibility criteria is for this program is a student needs to be between the ages of 17 and 25, must be in ASAP, and have been in foster care or is in active foster care. I mean, the goal of ASAP is to help students graduate within 3 years, and at least 50% of the students are required to do so. The way the ASAP supports the students is giving them a range of services, financial support, academic support, as well as personal one-on-one interactions and to support the students. So how do you join FCI or ASAP FCI? Now, as a way to smooth the pathway, and as Dorothy mentioned, that you do need to have partners within your school as well as externally, we have a very robust relationship with DOE. So that has created a very successful referral system for us high school students to go directly into CUNY. We also have created a referral link. So any interested student can fill that out, and we will follow up with the student for all their needs to get into CUNY. We have individualized touch points through phone calls, meetings, and making sure that they've also fulfilled the requirements to join CUNY Start, Math Start, or ASAP. We've also created resources for agencies. So we have video tutorials as well as several other resources that we share with our foster care agency partners so that they can find the latest information required for their students to join CUNY. The recruitment phase is challenging because our students do need that follow-up. So our network of partnerships with the agencies has been extremely helpful under the ACS umbrella, because that again creates a very, very organic relationship in the city between the agencies and CUNY. We also do have student orientations to bring the students in. So while ASAP has a very structured process for onboarding and orienting students, the transition to college, as you know, can be very difficult and challenging for youth in care. How do you navigate the campus? How do you adapt to college life? How do you manage time? How do you manage professor expectations? So in addition to the ASAP orientations, we will also conduct orientations for our FCI students so that they feel more confident about attending CUNY. There are also financial resources available for our students through ASAP. ASAP will cover MetroCards, textbook assistance, as well as cover gap in tuition. So in addition to the financial resources that ASAP provides, FCI also waives the CUNY application fee, opportunities for free summer and winter classes, as well as access to our year-round housing through FCSI. And how does advising work, and how do we support our students who are in foster care in ASAP? The ASAP advisement model is such that there is always one dedicated advisor assigned to each student right from when they enroll all the way to their graduation. And then we assess each student and place them into a support level category: low need, medium need, high need. And that means that it dictates the frequency in which they engage with their advisors. And they also receive other academic supports, such as tutoring based on the level of need. And then our FCI staff are very close contact with the advisors so that we can then also pick up on the interactive support that I mentioned and the wraparound and customized and individualized support that our students need. So the program structure, I mean, like Dorothy mentioned, that you start off very humbly. So before FCI existed, there were students who were in care who were at CUNY, but there was no formalized structure. And what FCI did is provide that structure and that kind of systemic, wraparound access to our students. And it's getting even better and better because we are learning through our own support of students and evolving through data and personal experiences while we are providing these services. And of course, it's important to apply for financial aid, but also important to maintain that financial aid eligibility, which is the main thing that students need to graduate. So recognizing that our students need more support than the traditional ASAP students, we've created these extra additional layers to support them. There are dedicated engagement specialists, also known as retention specialists, as well as FCI liaisons that are dedicated advisors specially assigned to our students. They also serve as a link between us and the different campuses. As you know, CUNY is huge with 25,000 ASAP students and several hundred youth in care. So it definitely helps to have those linkages. The staff at campuses also engage in providing workshops and many such different supports for them. They provide regular feedback to us through our database ASAP-I. We will then pick up all on the notes and communication of the advisors and engagement specialists, talk to the student, talk to the foster care agencies, or any partner support programs who are involved with the students. We also offer professional development for our CUNY staff, such as understanding the foster care system, trauma-informed approaches to supporting youth, motivational interviewing practices. And for our external partners, we also have regular convenings where we bring in all the CBOs, the foster agencies, and other stakeholders in New York City to come together to discuss best practices for our youth. CUNY representatives are often invited, and they will present resources for CUNY, resources available for students at CUNY, such as evolving academic policies. Especially now with post-COVID, it has been quite challenge with the evolving practices. Receiving and keeping financial aid, accessibility services, wellness, counseling, and so forth. This is also a platform where presenters and partners come and present on their own resources and services they offer for youth in care. We also contribute to written resources, such as this resource guide created by the team here. And as mentioned, we are also involved in policy development in the city. So this has allowed us to promote systemic changes across New York, and our membership has allowed us to create a dialogue so that we can continue to evolve to serve the students. And lastly, we also have a very robust research and evaluation activity. We have a strong evaluation system to measure program success for FCI. But not only that, we have expanded our research to track all our students in foster care attending CUNY from middle school to their employment history. And with additional partners that we are in dialogue with currently, we hope to have a broader scope of data collection and data sharing across all cities. And this would be very useful, not only to us, but all of you on this call, because it would give us a larger data set to analyze the trajectory of our students, create baseline data for assessment of program impact, which currently is not as much as we would like, drive effective policies because of the extensive research, and paint a truer picture of the academic landscape for youth in care for true systemic change. Thank you for listening. Now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Simon Lee, who is going to talk about gap funding in FCSI. Thank you.
Thank you, Abba. Hello, everyone. My name is Simon. I'm the budget coordinator for the FCSI. I'm responsible for tracking student accounts so that we can accurately apply the GAP award. The purpose of this award is to fill in the gaps for the students' cost of attendance. Founded in 2016, the Fostering College Success Initiative, FCSI, is a college residential support program delivered through a partnership between the City University of New York, CUNY, and the New York City Administration of Children's Services, ACS. ACS subcontracts with the New York Founding to provide wraparound services for students in the program. The overarching goal of FCSI is to increase post-secondary enrollment and graduations for youth in foster care attending CUNY colleges. FCSI aims to remove barriers to youth in care to allow them to successfully enter and complete a CUNY degree. Uh, FCSI students may reside year-round in CUNY resident halls. Participating students may attend any undergraduate college, and receive financial resources to cover the full cost of attendance, including 12 months of rooms and board, waiver of any outstanding tuition fees after financial aid, textbook, and transportation. Through the ACS partnership with New York Founding, students receive a variety of wraparound support services within the dorm setting, including tutoring, mentoring, and counseling. Whenever possible, FCSI students are matched with CUNY academic opportunity programs such as ASAP, Search for Education, Elevation, and Knowledge, SEEK, or College Discovery, CD. These programs provide a range of integrated financial, academic, and personal support to enhance academic momentum and ensure that the students are fully supported in their degree pursuits. In FCSI, apart from pragmatic system, we created unique process to support our students. Because of the complexity due to gap funding, the process requires close partnership with the bursar's office, the financial aid, and the system and payrolls. Once we receive the list of students from ACS, we begin the process by contacting dorms for charges, contacting the college attendants to post these charges, and contacting system and payroll to post the book charges. In addition, we place 2 indicators on each student's account. Because the gap award is the last dollar in, and due to the fluctuations in financial aid, outstanding balances, and student refunds can become a little bit tricky. In order to create a smoother process, we place a do not refund, also known as a BRF indicator, to ensure that the student's financial aid, with certain exceptions, will be applied to their cost of attendance and not be refunded to the students. Also, the second indicator, participating youth, also known as the FPY indicator, will provide our students with a do not cancel enrollment service trigger. This will ensure that our students will not be dropped from their classes due to outstanding balances. There are situations in which our students are unable to register for the next semester due to bursar holds. This usually is due to the outstanding balances that was mentioned before. These holds can be viewed via the student's CUNY First, their college account, and can be usually be resolved between the students and the bursar's office. However, we do get notification from partners that the students are unable to resolve on their own. We then provide assistance by contacting bursars to release the hold that is barring the students from registration. Our gap funding will pay for books, transportation for students that do not have a support program, such as the mentioned ASAP, SEEK, and College Discovery. The process for book posting and refunds is handled directly by CUNY Central. I contact bursars from the College of Attendance to post charges, payment, transportation, and refunds. I also coordinate the charges for housing, meals, and dorm fees between the college dorms and the College of Attendance. Once all charges, payments, and refunds are posted, we work closely with financial aid to analyze students' account to see how much gap award is needed. We review these students' support program. We review student support program, Pell and TAP, scholarships, and any foreseeable incoming awards. Since gap award is the last dollar in, we usually begin posting the gap award near the end of the academic year. Doing so will give the financial aid time to be applied to the student's cost of attendance. Once we complete this review, we post the gap award for any gaps in the student's cost of attendance. There are some challenges in the adjustment and the posting of the gap award. Due to the financial aid fluctuations that were mentioned, for example, a student's SAP requirement for TAP and Pell, I regularly monitor and adjust the gap award in order to balance the student's account. If there is an outstanding balance due to these fluctuations, I will contact the college financial office to adjust the gap award. In addition, I also track special grants like the recent CARES Act to ensure that these funds are excluded from the BRF do not refund indicator and is refunded to the students. These are the exceptions that I was mentioning before. The GAP process requires a close partnership with the financial aid bursar's office, and because of factors out of our control, such as like the COVID-19, which resulted in the CARES Act, we support each other in identifying students that need closer attention. The process is complex, with many departments working together to ensure our students are fully supported. If anyone's interested in this and or the FCI process and wants to know more information, please feel free to contact us. Aba, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon and Aba, for your wonderful presentation on the CUNY programs, the CUNY ASAP, Foster Youth Initiative, and the CUNY Dawn Project. Now we are going to move forward and highlight some additional practices that currently exist in New York State to support foster youth. But before I do that, I just want to send a final reminder that if you have any questions about how Aba, Simon, or Dorothy are supporting students with a foster care background on their campus, any of the protocols that they have mentioned that they've put in place to ensure that student accounts are adjusted accordingly, or any of the protocols that they put in place to support students with identification to providing services, you can use the question and answer feature chat box to post your questions, and we will answer them live during the Q&A. So I would like to take this time to highlight a couple of additional practices that we know currently exist across New York State. Some of these practices take into play the Foster Youth College Success Initiative, which is the statewide funding that was established in 2015 to support foster youth attending college in New York, originally through the opportunity programs, whether that be SEEK or CD at the CUNY system, the educational opportunity programs within the SUNY system, or the higher education opportunity programs within private independent colleges in New York State. One example I wanted to provide is St. Lawrence University. St. Lawrence University is also a core partner, and they've had several young people across the years that have been from foster care that also believe have 100% graduation rate for their foster youth. Along with the Foster Youth College Success Initiative funds, which vary year to year based upon the state allocation, St. Lawrence has made the commitment to ensure that foster youth's cost of attendance is fully covered and that they have to take out no student loans in order to attend college. So that's a university, while it is very far up north, it is a university that young people can attend for a free full ride tuition if they are an eligible foster youth. One of the other areas that comes up a lot for foster youth is really worries and concerns about housing, particularly during the summer sessions or the winter intersessions or fall intersessions. Housing is just a critical need for youth in foster care, and it can be the determining factor as to whether or not a young person decides to go to college, is if they have a place to live during those off sessions. Lemoyne College, which is based in the Syracuse area, is a great college partner that has established a policy which allows foster youth as well as students that are experiencing homelessness to live on campus during the intersessions and the summer sessions as a way to ensure that they are not housing insecure and housing does not become an issue for their persistence to graduation. Another initiative that was created in partnership with the Governor's Office, the New York State Office of Family and Children's Services, as well as the SUNY system, is a summer housing and a winter session housing initiative for foster youth. In 2016, through a partnership with OCFS and the Governor's Office for funding, there's a policy now in place that allows foster youth to live on campus during the intersession, so whether that's the fall intersession or the summer sessions with housing covered. Again, I think housing comes up quite frequently because as young people are progressing along the way, particularly those that are still in foster care, housing can be a very precarious situation. So now I would like to focus on a couple of campus policy recommendations that I would like to highlight. As I mentioned, the College Success Resource Guide has 6 chapters, 5 chapters that really highlight tips and strategies with understanding how to support and navigate the child welfare system and to support foster youth to do that while attending college, and ensuring that they can access all of the available resources, whether those are room and board payments or food or access just to basic needs, to ensuring that there is a chapter fully dedicated about maximizing financial aid for youth in foster care, and maximizing access to community-based resources such as healthcare and public benefits that really ensure that young people who don't have other resources can continue to attend college. The final chapter in the College Success Resource Guide is Chapter 6, and it is our campus policy recommendations. This chapter is a compilation of recommendations from students themselves who have successfully navigated college. College campuses and staff like Abba and Simon and Dorothy, recommendations from state agencies such as the Office of Children and Family Services, the Higher Education Services Corporation, and the New York State Health Department have all collaborated, as well as our national partners, which are the Juvenile Law Center, have all collaborated to ensure that we can come up with recommendations that really highlight ways campuses and staff, like many of you all, can be advocates on your campus for foster youth. And so I wanted to take this time to highlight a couple of the key recommendations. The first one is foster youth identification. So as you heard earlier, SUNY has a foster youth identification question on its central admissions application that was established in 2017. That is important because it is really the first point of access for campuses to identify who their foster youth are. And from the creation of the identification question, SUNY was able to develop these institutional queries that allow you to pull application information on students. And so in the resource guide, there are examples of how to word a foster youth identification question on your admissions application, as well as some information about what has worked really well. And research shows that when you include the foster youth identification question along with a reference to the fact that by identifying as a foster youth, you may be able to access support services or financial aid specific for that population, there is a higher than 90% answer rate to that question, affirmative answer rate to that question. Foster youth campus liaisons. And so while the words weren't used today, Dorothy, Abba, and Simon both mentioned ways that they worked with several different foster youth campus liaisons, Dorothy being a liaison for the Stony Brook campus for all foster youth, Simon being the financial aid budget coordinator for CUNY, i.e. being a liaison and really helping to ensure that all foster youth at the CUNY campuses financial aid packages are in order. And many other liaisons, whether that be financial aid office liaisons or bursar liaisons. But the identification of a campus liaison, someone that understands the foster youth lingo and understands kind of where foster youth information will come from, is an extremely critical and important tool that can be advocated for and implemented without cost. A couple of other things I'd like to highlight are some of the dorm living and housing policies. And so as I mentioned, California has a state law that prioritizes on-campus housing for foster youth, so they get first pick, as well as policies that allow foster youth to remain on campus past the traditional time frame. So maybe if you're a campus that only guarantees on-campus housing for freshmen and sophomores, maybe allowing on-campus housing for foster youth all 4 years would be a way to support this population. Lastly, I would like to highlight the data collection and tracking. We don't currently know enough about the number of foster youth that are successfully graduating from college. I think we've been throwing around this number of 3 to 11% for many years, but given all of the movement and all of the improvements in New York, we know that that number has increased drastically. And so we really encourage campuses, when you are doing your institutional research, to identify foster youth as a student population and look at how foster youth are succeeding or not succeeding on your campuses so you can determine how you can support that student group. And so there are many other campus policy recommendations within Chapter 6 and ways and suggestions for how you can advocate. And so I will leave you all to visit the website and the guidebook and review the remaining campus policy recommendations. So I thank you for that. Now I'd like to move on to the webinar evaluation. We have a very brief webinar and we ask that you all participate. It is just 3 questions. We ask for you to rate your satisfaction with today's webinar. We ask how likely you are to access the College Resource Success Guide online in the future. And we ask whether or not you are likely to share this resource guide in the future. It does not look like we have any questions, so I will allow you all 1 moment to complete the evaluation poll, which should have popped up on your screen. While you're completing the webinar, I'd like to ask for your help. So we are looking for you all to help us spread the word about the Making College Success a Reality for New York's Youth in Care resource guide, and ways that you can help are listed here. You can feature a link on your web source that will directly link to the resource guide, and you can use this cute widget that we have created of one of our recent graduates. This is a real life foster youth, and we will happily send you this widget that you can post on your website to link to the resource guide. You can share links to the resource guide via social media platforms or your email listservs through your monthly or quarterly newsletters. You can post an intranet announcement if your organization or agency has its own intranet. You can write a news story, and I'm sure there are many young people, many students, including the FISA ambassadors like Kimberly and Trinae, who is pictured here, that would be willing to contribute to a newsletter. You can promote the 5 webinar series, which, as I mentioned, there have been 5 webinars. Or if you have a specific request to have a webinar or a workshop presented for your campus, you can request a workshop by emailing to, what is the email? You can email to fysa@children'saidnyc.org. And if you have a request for support, or if you want information about how to support foster youth, you can do a request to that email. And lastly, as I mentioned, there have been 5 webinars in this series. And if you have any interest in viewing any of the previous webinars, they can be found on the website. The first webinar was a live guide review of the 6 chapters, and so you'll go and see a navigation of the live review as well as a student testimonial. The second webinar was the Foster Youth College Success Initiative webinar, and that webinar focuses specifically on that financial aid initiative and the program implementation for the 2020-2021 academic year. The third webinar was focused on maximizing financial aid for foster youth, where we have an amazing presentation from a CUNY foster care, the CUNY financial aid director, who really walks through tips and strategies for packaging foster youth. The fourth webinar was a guide navigation for parents, students, foster youth, and child welfare advocates, where we had some great tools and tips, and today is the final webinar. And so we would, like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you all for being advocates on behalf of foster youth. And we hope that you will engage with the College Resource Success, and we wish you a wonderful afternoon. So have a great day.